When the county assessor came out, he didn't stay long. Walked the edge of the property, looked over the ground, made a few notes, and said, "This land isn't worth much. Too rocky, too uneven. No real use for it." That's what went on record. That's what it was taxed as. And for years, no one questioned it, because from the outside, it didn't look like much. Just a stretch of land most people would pass right by. Until one day, the same county that called it worthless came back, not to reassess it, not to argue, but to buy it. And this time, they weren't offering a discount. The land belonged to Arthur Bell, 61, lived there most of his life. Not because it was valuable, but because it was his. It wasn't the kind of property people fought over. Too much rock, not enough level ground. Parts of it sloped in ways that made it hard to use for anything consistent. No clear water source, no easy access from the main road, and nothing about it suggested it would ever change. Most of the surrounding land had already been sold off, flattened, built on, turned into something more useful. But Arthur kept his, not out of strategy, not because he was waiting for something. He just didn't see a reason to let it go, so he worked around it, used the parts that made sense, ignored the rest. Let the rough ground stay rough. From the outside, it looked like he was holding onto something that didn't have much of a future. Neighbors said it all the time. You could sell that and get something better. Not much you can do with a land like that. Doesn't really have a purpose. Arthur never argued. He didn't try to prove them wrong, because for the most part, they weren't wrong. It wasn't valuable. Not in the usual ways, not the ways people looked for. But that didn't mean it was nothing. It just meant whatever value it had wasn't obvious. For a long time, nothing changed. The land stayed the same, rough, uneven, quiet. People drove past it without slowing down. Didn't look twice, didn't need to, because there was nothing there that seemed worth noticing. And over time, that became the assumption. If something had value, someone would have done something with it by now, built on it, cleared it, sold it, but no one had. So it stayed what it was, unused, overlooked, left alone. And Arthur, he kept working the parts he could, staying close to the edges, avoiding the sections that didn't make sense to fight, not trying to change it, just living with it. Years passed like that, quiet, uneventful, until one season. Something started to shift, not the land itself, not in any obvious way, but around it. Survey trucks began showing up along the nearby road. Markings appeared where there hadn't been any before. Small flags, paint on the ground, people measuring distances, taking notes, coming back more than once. At first, no one thought much of it. Just another project. Another plan that would move through, the way things always did. But the visits didn't stop. They became more frequent, more precise. And slowly, the attention started getting closer, closer to the edge of Arthur's land, closer to the part everyone had ignored. And for the first time in years, people weren't just driving past it anymore. They were looking at it, trying to understand what they might have missed. The reason wasn't obvious at first. It rarely is. The survey teams didn't explain anything. They just kept measuring, marking, coming back. Until one afternoon, someone finally mentioned it. Not officially, just in passing. A conversation that wasn't meant to travel far. There was going to be a new route, a line cutting through that part of the county. Not for houses, not for farming. Something bigger, infrastructure, the kind that didn't bend around obstacles, the kind that went straight through them. And when they mapped it out, when they laid it across everything that was already there, Arthur's land sat right in the middle of it. Not the usable parts, not the easy ground, the exact stretch everyone had ignored, the rocky sections, the uneven slope, the part no one thought had a purpose. That was the part they needed, because for what they were building, those problems weren't problems at all. They were advantages, the elevation, the natural formation, the way the land had been left untouched. Everything that made it worthless to everyone else made it exactly right for this. And once that was understood, everything moved fast. The same county that had written it off came back. Not with clipboards this time, not with assumptions, but with offers. Serious ones. Because now, they weren't looking at what the land couldn't do. They were looking at what it was perfect for. And for the first time, the value wasn't hidden anymore. It was undeniable. The first offer came in quietly. No announcement, no pressure. Just a number, written on paper, higher than anything the land had ever been valued at. Arthur looked at it. Didn't react right away. Just folded it, set it aside. A few days later, they came back. This time with more detail, more explanation, more urgency. Because the project wasn't waiting, and neither were they. The route had already been mapped. The plans were already moving forward. And the one piece they couldn't work around was his. The same ground they had called worthless, now sitting at the center of everything. The offers changed, not just higher, but faster, more direct, less room for hesitation. And word started to spread. Neighbors who had passed by that land for years started paying attention, stopping, looking, trying to understand how something they had ignored had suddenly become important. One of them walked up to Arthur while the county truck was still parked nearby, shook his head, half smiling. Didn't think there was anything out there worth buying. Arthur glanced past him, toward the stretch of land everyone had dismissed, then back again, and said there wasn't until someone needed it. That was all. No explanation, no correction. Just the truth, spoken a little later than most people expected. And standing there, watching the same people who once overlooked it, now trying to secure it. There was only one thing left to understand. The land hadn't changed. Only the need for it had. After that, things didn't feel the same. Not for the county, not for the people who had driven past that land for years, and not even for Arthur. The ground itself hadn't changed. Still rough, still uneven, still the same stretch of land most people wouldn't know what to do with. But now, everyone looked at it differently. Because once something shows its value, you don't see it the same way again. The county moved forward with their plans. The route was set, the decisions made. And the land that had once been written off became part of something much bigger. Arthur didn't talk much about it, didn't go back and correct anyone, didn't remind them what they had said before. He didn't need to. Because the change wasn't in the land. It was in the understanding of it. And that doesn't come from arguments. It comes from time. From seeing something when you need it, not when you don't. Years later, People still passed by that same stretch, but they didn't ignore it anymore. They slowed down, looked a little longer, because now they knew something they hadn't known before. That just because something doesn't seem useful doesn't mean it isn't. It just means its moment hasn't come yet. And when it does, everything changes. Not the thing itself, just the way people see it.